Hey you, how you doing? My name is Tommy, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the concept of positive, negative emotions, future pace, and really the juice of what you need when you're on a sales call and how you can go about accomplishing it, as well as some background. And the reason why I'm doing this is number one, to help me better understand it so I can articulate it for myself, simplify it for myself, because if you're able to teach it, that's when you really know you understand it. And then the second thing too is for people to look at, take advantage of, and use in their own sales process so they can close more deals. So this is not original to me. I have been going through Bill Walsh's community, being inside of his one of his high level mentorships and masterminds, and it's taken me a while to get to this point. I've been through multiple different like training styles, different training programs, sales processes, etc. From like, RCA, STA, NEPQ, and a variety of other ones I've taken as well. Personally, all of them have this in some way, shape, or form, but I find the one that I'm going through right now with Bill to be the easiest, most efficient, and honestly the simplest. So what I'm going to do, and forgive me, I haven't cut my hair in a while, so it looks a little bit ragged, but the goal here is obviously to give you high quality content and explain as I go along. So I'm going to give you a bunch of background and then systematically walk you through step by step. If you can't see everything on my board, I will be reading it out so that you can obviously understand everything. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the macro. So up here is the macro. Okay. And this is more of the micro. When you're on a sales call, you need specific pieces of information to understand if you can help the prospect, and then ideally get ahead of objections if you obviously need to obviously do that. So specifically, if we start over here on the upper left-hand corner, we need to know where the prospect is today and where they're trying to get to. So the 3K mark, that's just what I put there, and then the 10K mark. And in the middle is the logical steps that have to take place in order for them to go from the 3K to the 10K. Cool. It's fairly simple. That's not challenging to understand. Most offers are able to do that. Some of them recommend that you literally figure out to the nitty gritty detail and then customize a solution for them. Bill tends to be in favor of it. The process doesn't really matter as long as the outcome is worth it to them and they're willing to commit to do the steps. The process is irrelevant, because if you got to dance on your head for freaking 24 hours straight, but then you get $1 billion for the rest of your life, people will do that. So that is what this is. So the current situation, and we put a number on it. The future situation, we put a number on it, and then the steps in the middle. Now the problem is we were to just do that, you're not going to make that many sales because people buy with emotion and justify with logic. So we need to actually get the emotions first. Well, not first. We need to get the emotions and tie that into the logical piece, because if they're excited about something, they're emotional about something, but it doesn't make sense logically, they may buy it, but then they'll buyer's remorse, or they won't buy it at all because they can't logically justify it. So we need to do both, which leads us into the actual topic of this conversation, which is understanding positive emotions and negative emotions, how to get them, when to get them, and then some of the nuances of how you need to navigate it. So this chart right here is exactly the same as the macro, the 3K and the 10K. I just removed those pieces. This is if you were to have a bland, logical conversation. You start the call here, you go through, you ask a bunch of questions, you pitch, and then you try to objection handle. That's what this is. And I'll put a little bit of a marker here. So that in Bill's process is before cost of inaction. That's where that key comes into play. And I'll cover consequence cost of inaction a little bit later at the end of this. But so as we're going on the sales call, we're going to be asking them logical things, but then we're also going to be getting the emotions behind the logical things. So 10K, why do you want 10K? They're going to give reasons, and then you can go and ask them things like, how will that make you feel when you are able to get to 10K? That'd be more in the future pace, but sometimes you can get it in North Star. So ideally, as we're talking about the positivity, we actually get what I call at the macro scale, because again, we're at the macro, emotional momentum. In this case, positive emotional momentum. So we're going up and we go, 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 go. And then eventually we peak out. All right. And that for the rest of the sales call puts this at this level right here. Now, the thing is, we cannot just have a completely positive conversation. There needs to be emotional tension. And emotional tension comes from positivity contrasted with negativity. So we can't just get the positive, we also need to get the negative. So we move up, we got that. Okay, for the rest of the call, that's what this is. And then on the flip side, okay, now we've got that. Now we need to start going negative. And then we get them to this point, and then now for the rest of the call, that they're negative. This is what we create when we do that. The positive point and the negative point. We tie it into, so this part goes to the 10K, this part goes to the 3K, the positivity with the 10K, the negativity with the 3K. And this is the emotional gap. This is actually what we're selling. You can almost like imagine layering it over that. Cool. So once we have the logical piece in play, which every process is going to help you do that, we have the emotional piece in play, meaning they now have the urgency and desire to make a change. That is at a macro scale. What we're going to now do is shift into the middle, and I'll explain some of the nuances of how to actually get this and get that. So in order for you to get positivity, get positive momentum, you need to talk about the future, the better future, the pleasure, the way I like to think about it as heaven. You need to talk about heaven in some way, shape, or form. There's two ways you can really do that. You can talk about them experiencing heaven, pulling themselves into heaven when you are able to take care of your family, you're able to take them to Disneyland. That is pulling you to heaven. What you can also do is talk about leaving hell. So it would be, I guess in this capacity, it'd be pushing away from hell, when you don't have to be stressed about the finances anymore, when you don't have to worry about buying your kids Christmas presents because you actually have enough money in the bank. The thing is, whether you're pulling yourself towards positivity, you're pulling yourself towards heaven, or you're pushing yourself away from negativity, or you're pushing yourself away from hell, the end result is positive emotional momentum, which is why I put the little arrow going up like that. So either way, you're good. Now remember, we are talking about tomorrow, the future, when they are at the 10K per month mark. Okay? Now, how do we get the negativity? Well, to get the negativity, you literally do the exact opposite. You talk about today, the current pain, problems, and concerns of today. And the way that you do that is by talking about today and then being pulled into hell, or being and pushing away from heaven or lacking heaven. Those are the two ways you can really accomplish getting negativity into the conversation, get them to experience the hell that they're currently in. So they either miss out on the positivity, which is a negative emotion, or they keep experiencing hell, which means they just keep experiencing pain, problems, and concerns, which results in negativity. Again, emphasis on today. So today you're missing out on the future, or today you're currently experiencing problems. If you want them to be positive, in the future, when you are able to experience pleasure, or in the future, when you stop experiencing hell, that is how you can create that dynamic. Okay. So again, tomorrow, the future is pleasure and positivity. If you're leaving behind hell or you're running towards heaven, because different people have different ways of looking at the world. That's going to lead me into the micro conversation. So we've talked about the macro of emotional momentum. We've talked about tomorrow, and we've talked about today, and then the emphasis of that results in positivity or negativity entering the conversation, which is going to result in positive or negative momentum, building the emotional gap. The last piece is the micro, which the way I like to think about this is when you're actually in the trenches on a sales call. What direction is the prospect talking about, or are they looking at? What are they focused on? Because depending on what they're focused on, that's going to play into what specific words you need to say to get what you need. So, for example, if someone is focused on today's problems, today's struggles, today's issues, and they give you a bunch of stuff like, okay, so when you are able to get to that 10K per month, what is that going to allow you to do? I'm going to not feel stressed. What are they looking at? They're looking at hell today. So if I want to keep them moving in a positive direction, then what I need to do is, or what I can do, is I can either keep with their focus, meaning continue to push away from hell and get a positive momentum, or I can flip it and decide, you know what, okay, cool, but experiencing hell, but what is that actually going to allow you to do when you're not stressed? And then they're going to start pulling themselves toward heaven. Okay. So either way, you're going to get positive momentum. It just comes down to what you feel in the moment is that they're going to respond best to. Because if they're constantly talking about the negativity and you're always talking about the positivity, there's going to be a little bit of a disconnect. You don't want that. You want to be in sync. And the way that you are in sync is by listening to their language and then understanding, take their language, tell them that you're listening. Literally, if they say some words, use their words, and then understand how to spin it so you can get, if you feel it, positive momentum if you feel you need more positivity, or negative momentum if you need more negativity. Okay. And so the way that this would actually look in practice is we want him to be heaven focused. We want to keep getting more positive momentum. And they give us a positive answer. You can add another positive to keep moving up. So how would it feel being able to whatever in the future? So that would be like a positive heaven focused answer. If you wanted them to experience negativity, you want them to experience hell, but they're focused on heaven, then what you do is you focus on what they're missing out on. How does it feel not being able to go to Disneyland, not being able to take care of your parents? You're looking and you're focused on heaven, but they're not able to do it. And believe it or not, missing out on something can be just as painful as you actually experiencing something painful. So that's why it is negativity. Now, let's say instead of them being heaven focused, they're more hell focused about today, the problems, pains, and concerns. Then what you would do is you could push off. So this is like going back to what I said earlier. How would it feel being able to? That's pulling you towards heaven. How does it feel not being able to experience pain, pushing off of pain? If you're hell focused, if you're wanting them, if they are hell focused and you're wanting to move them in a positive direction, you push off of the pain. How would it feel not having to experience the stress of finances? If they're hell focused and you need to move them negativity macro wise, then it's like, how does it feel dealing with that stress every single day? What does that look like? How is it impacting you? So that is the focus. Okay. So there's two components. Again, there's macro and micro. Macro is, what do I need them to go to? What direction do I need to move them in emotionally to build the emotional gap? And then once you know what direction you need to move, when they give you something, are they hell focused or are they or are they hell focused or are they heaven focused? Today versus tomorrow. And whichever one of those it is, you understand what you need to do and how you need to say what you need to say in order to move them in the direction you need to move them at a macro level. So once that's done and you understand this piece and this piece, and then understand that, remember, reminding of tomorrow versus today, that's going to affect specifically how that works. Which way is the prospect looking? Are they looking at heaven or are they looking at hell? And then I need to ask myself, which direction do I need them to experience more? Do I need them to experience more hell to build a bigger gap? Or do I need them to experience more heaven? Now, the key here is, generally speaking, you want them to have the maximum of both. But depending on the prospect, sometimes they're not going to be able to envision a whole lot of heaven. It's going to be a huge amount of negativity. And so you need to understand how to properly navigate that. On the flip side, if someone is having a good life, they're comfortable, there's not going to be a huge amount of negativity you can pull out. And so then you need to understand how to navigate that person, how to be able to create some negativity, but then also go into positivity, make them willing, wanting to make a change. And so that's where some of the nuance can come into play. But again, this is like at a high level. Ideally, you want maximum of both for the maximum emotional gap. Now, once you run through all of this, once you run through getting the emotions, figuring out what matters to them, being able to navigate positive momentum and negative momentum, bringing them closer to heaven or further down into hell, and you understand how to flip it depending on what they're focused on, the last piece is consequence. All right. And consequence, or cost of inaction, is if nothing changes. I know NEPQ is like, what are the possible ramifications of this? Bill is very much on the, if you don't make the change and 5 years down the road, something happens. There's that piece. And then Cole, he tends to be more along the lines of, so his is more like the cost question. He doesn't specifically ask like long-term what the problems are. You can kind of suss it out sometimes, but that's neither here nor there. But there's really two. Depending on the prospect, sometimes you can maybe do 3. But the thing is, okay, from today, if things keep moving forward, continuing to burn in hell, meaning you're already in pain and problems and concerns, continuing to burn in hell. You're consequencing on continuing to stay in hell. Or on the flip side, you consequence on you keep missing out on heaven. Now, again, missing out on heaven, if you're missing out on something, sometimes it can be as painful as actually physically experiencing pain and problems. So, all this is to say, this is how you actually navigate building an emotional gap in a way that is conversationally flexible and actually puts you in a position to be able to win. Because once you can figure out what the leverage point of your specific prospect is, and you know how to do this effectively every single call, your chances of closing go up astronomically. And if you can't do this properly, you're not going to be able to close nearly as much as you would. And you're probably going to be let go, and then you're going to be broken unhappy. So that is essentially what this is. It has taken me months to get it to this point, months to distill it down to this simple framework. So hopefully you found this valuable. Again, I know this isn't the most sexy I've looked in the world, but that's not the point. The point here is to educate, improve my own skill sets, and put you in the best position to be able to close. So if you like this, you can find me on social media. I'm everywhere. It's whatever my handle happens to be, TOMY Talent. That's also my website. In case you're curious, I have a bunch of free resources on there you can check out that helps you close better, pick better business opportunities, pick better offers, all those different things. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to help if there's any way that I can. And until next time, I'm out.